I live in Inwood. I'm 29 and I'm from Miami, Florida. I consider myself a writer first and also a political commentator. But secondly, I work in nonprofit. I manage a professional development program meant for mid-level to senior level executives here in the city, mostly of color. And the work is focused on racial and gender parity at the highest levels of corporate America. I'm Haitian American, so I did a DNA test through Ancestry.com, because black people, we don't really know exactly where we come from. My father's white, but I didn't really grow up with him around, so I really identify almost exclusively as Haitian American. I lived in Haiti when I was younger, just very connected to the culture. But I guess what I've become known for is a letter that I wrote about a month ago to my neighbor. To kind of start from the beginning, it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I received a phone call from my best friend who was here last night. We were kind of having drinks and just talking about it and laughing. Actually, I was talking like I am now, just having a normal phone conversation, cognizant of the fact that it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm usually not up at that time, and I had to go to work in the morning, so it was a brief conversation, no more than maybe like 30, 45 minutes. For me, it's brief because I can be long-winded. And woke up in the morning, was rushing to work, and I saw this letter on my door, and at first I was taken aback because I was like shocked that I had disturbed somebody, and like that was not my intention. I was like, oh my God, I was loud, and like actually I might have woken somebody up, and I felt kind of bad for like 1.5 seconds. And then I got to the rest of the note where he was talking about filing a complaint with building management and like wanting to call the police on me and basically threatening me and telling me I need to learn manners and all these, like just kind of went in. And I was rushing to work, so I kind of threw the note aside, and I went on to work, and I work downtown, so it took me about 45 minutes to commute, and that gives you a lot of time to think about how someone tried you first thing in the morning. And for something that essentially could have been resolved with a simple knock on my door, or a simple note saying, hey, you've been loud, could we talk about it, was it, whatever. But it was kind of the threat of wanting to get the authorities involved with something that's so like trivial. You know, as a black person, when you think about all the different things that have happened, whether we're talking about like Terrence Crutcher, or whether we're talking about Alton Sterling, whether we're talking about Eric Garner, these are all minor crimes that these people are alleged to have committed, and then they end in death. So when you tell me you're going to call the police on me, I have to take that as a threat. Like I can't take that any other way. And I just made two very kind of elaborate points, but they were only 2 points. Right? Like, first of all, you have bad interpersonal skills, and this has racial implications. So I think part of the reason I share, and I have a habit of just sharing my life on Facebook, because I do think as black people, we need that affirmation to know that, hey, we're not the only ones that are going through things. And that's part of the reason that I feel like the new shows like Atlanta and Insecure are so popular and gaining so much traction amongst black people, because they're so fucking honest about where we are at, like the things that we're dealing with, the things that we're thinking, and how we as millennials are kind of just dealing with race in a different kind of way than the counterparts that came before us, or the generation before us. Given the fact that he had written these passive-aggressive notes before, and like not really seeking resolution around it, because you're not wanting to converse so we can kind of find an amenable solution. You're really trying to just come at me and make me feel uncomfortable, or put me in my place in a sense, and like that's actually not the way that I'm ever going to accommodate somebody. A lot of people have used that quote that Michelle Obama, like they go low, we go high, and that's great. There's a time and a place, but there's also a time and a place to meet somebody where they're at. I think it's really important that people stay authentic to who they are. And so for me, even though I sometimes I'm a little bit afraid that like me being vocal about these issues could place me at a disadvantage in my career, specifically because I'm working in this space where I'm connected to all these like corporate entities and these big names and these people that are kind of very well-to-do. At the same time, I feel like I'd be doing a disservice to myself, to the community that I feel like I serve, if I'm not vocal about these issues, specifically amongst and around people that need to be pushed around these issues. I think there's a lot of colluding between the corporations and the companies that own these buildings. A lot of times, the black tenants have been renting for generations, or they don't own the property, or they own the property and then they're getting kind of finangled out of ownership. There's this whole article, like this series of articles that the New York Times did around talking about how these like shell companies were coming in and buying property out from under a lot of black owners in Brooklyn, and a lot of them like needed this quick money, and so they were like buying into these contracts and getting like a tenth of what the value of their homes were, and then kind of were left destitute. So I don't think all white people are like necessarily evil gentrifiers either. I think some of them are just like taking advantage of cheaper rents and like wanting to move into these communities and wanting to make it their own. But New York has such a complicated history that they don't often see how they're feeding into a system that's moving and pushing people out. I think it's irresponsible if they think that they're going to move into a community and think it's okay to call the police on someone for talking in their home at a normal speaking voice, right? And so when he decided to respond again with like this another passive aggressive typed up note now, like that really irked me, because like you're not getting the point, you know. But like I'm not gonna be made to feel like that in my own home. Like, it's just not. It's my one safe space in all of New York City, and nobody's gonna make me feel uncomfortable or unsafe in there. I have a podcast that I've been working on for about a year, and it's like about ready to launch, Reparations Podcast. And it's kind of like my baby and my pride and joy, and so I've kind of really taken my time with it. It's I don't want to call it comedic. It's like a comedic political podcast, and it's with one of my really, really good friends who's an attorney here in the city, and we basically try to make a lot of these complicated topics that all of us black people talk about every day, and kind of bring it under the microscope of like our perspectives. And like I consider myself somewhat of a policy expert, having got my MPA and working in the space, having worked in the space. And so I approach it from that perspective. She definitely kind of brings her legalese into it, but we keep it like 100. It's like kind of semi-ratchet, but like in like the best way possible, and I'm brutally honest. And like for me, when I'm Haitian American, so if black people in this country do get reparations, I don't see none of it. But like for me, reparations is the freedom to not feel like a visitor, the freedom to be as open and honest and brutally honest about racism or calling things how you see it. And I'm of the belief that almost everything in America comes down to race. So because a lot of people, the reception to some of my letter, some people's reception to my letter was that I was making it racial. But to me, everything in America is racial. It just is. And like I think, to deny that, I think, is doing a disservice to history, and it's erasing like a common truth. It was supposed to launch last month, but now we're going to be launching in November. So it'll be launching officially sometime this month. But you can check out reparationspodcast.com. I want to be known for the work that I do, and I mean, eventually I'm still really building up my career. But I don't want to be like, I mean, I guess if it's out of respect and they're really respecting the work that I do, then I guess. But I don't want to become a character, and I don't want to be like
known for just this.
Yeah, just known. I don't want to be somebody that's known on social media, but that actually doesn't do anything. You know, I'm not planning on a 15 seconds. I'm planning on a whole career about really, being honest and forthright about what's happening in this country, and kind of bringing a lot of different intersectionalities into it, and just kind of spurring dialogue and conversation. So I'm happy that the letter went viral, but I plan to hopefully continue to do things that incite the same kind of reactions and productive dialogue.